Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a What's for Dinner Wednesday video. I will be showing you how I made a Mississippi pot roast as well as a chicken pot pie. And guys, these recipes are so easy. And the third meal that I make is the autumn chicken meal. I'm sure you've probably heard of it. It's like all over Pinterest. I will have these recipes linked in the description box below if you want to recreate them. I didn't follow them all to a T, and you'll see that. I don't feel like I ever follow a recipe to a T, but anyway, let's get into the video. So for the Mississippi pot roast, you will need a 1 big chuck roast, ranch seasoning, au jus sauce, as well as pepperoncinis. I sprayed my crock pot with some cooking spray so that way nothing would stick. And then I went ahead and I put the chuck roast in the crock pot. And then I mixed the au jus seasoning packet, and I've also heard you can use French onion soup mix, whatever you prefer. And I mixed in the ranch seasoning. You can honestly do whatever amount you want. I think it calls for 1/3 cup. But anyway, I mixed those two ingredients together. I whisked them with a fork, and then I went ahead and poured this all over the top of the chuck roast. I also forgot to mention, you guys will need, it calls for a stick of butter, but I thought that was a lot, so I used a half a stick of butter, and that kind of helps to give a little bit more liquid when the butter melts. And then I went ahead and I put the pepperoncinis on top of the chuck roast, and I did use a little bit of the pepperoncini juice just to give it a little bit more spice. I used, I think, about 5 pepperoncinis. I put 3 on there, and then I was like, no, this thing is way too large. I need to add a few more. So I threw them in there. And then I cut some small pieces of butter and I put those chunks all over the roast, and that is it for this recipe, guys. There is enough liquid from the chuck roast because there is a lot of fat, so it does have a lot of liquid actually when it does cook up. So you don't have to add any water or anything like that. So I put the lid on, put it on for 6 hours on high. You could do 8 hours on low, just depending on how much time you had. And that's it. To plate this, I did make some homemade red mashed potatoes, as well as I did shred the roast up. You could cut it up into slices, but it was just so good like this over mashed potatoes. I put some juice, some of the juice from it on top. Oh my gosh, this is my new favorite pot roast. The next recipe is a chicken pot pie. You will need 2 cans of canned chicken. You could use regular chicken if you like, a pie crust, some whole milk, cream of chicken soup, some vegetables, and whatever seasoning you like. So you go ahead and put the can of soup right in the crock pot. So I made the mistake of adding the whole soup can of milk. So I had to go through and take some of the milk out actually, but I think it only calls for a ½ cup of milk. Like I said, the recipe will be in the description box below, and then you will add the cans of chicken. And once the chicken is added, you will go ahead and turn your crock pot on. I don't like to add the vegetables unless they are raw. I don't like to add them until later on because I don't want them to get really mushy. So I found a couple red potatoes as well as an onion in my fridge, so I cut those up and added that to the soup mixture as well. You don't have to do this, but I just had them laying around. Honestly, guys, whatever you like in your pot pie is fine. So now that the mixture has been in there for a few hours, I will go ahead and add the frozen vegetables and give that a quick stir. and I added some basil, some onion powder, a couple bay leaves. Just make sure you take them out before you put the mixture into the pie filling, and some Italian seasoning. This just helped to give it a little bit more flavor. And the liquid was still a little bit too runny for my liking, so I took just a little bit of the soup out and added a couple tablespoons of flour, and I whisked that together really good and poured that back in and gave it a good stir. And this just to help thicken it up a lot because I didn't want it too soupy in the pot pie. So now I'm gonna go ahead and add this to our already made pie crust. If you wanna make homemade pie crust, be my guest, but this is supposed to be a super easy dinner for nights when you're super busy. This was our first day of homeschool, so I knew I needed something quick and easy and that could go in the crock pot and basically be ready to eat. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the top of the pie crust on, and I do have my oven preheated. I did add a few venting slices to the top of the pie just so that way it didn't overflow too bad. So after I do that, the pot pie will be ready to put in the oven. You will want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees and put it in for about 40 minutes or so, just until the top starts to get a little brown. And this is what it looks like when it's done. You guys, this is so good. I have made this for so many years and Ryan always loves it. It's usually gone by the end of dinner. We'll be lucky to have any sort of leftovers with this meal. So this next recipe is a new family favorite. This is autumn chicken. I have made this one other time and I completely forgot about it until I saw it on Pinterest again. It is so good. So for this recipe, you are going to need some salt and pepper, you will need a few cloves of garlic. You can use minced garlic if that's easier for you, but I had this in my fridge, so I figured I'd use it up. A couple apples, doesn't matter what kind of apples, guys, any apples will do. Some chicken breast. We had 4 chicken breasts because we are a family of 5 and my mother-in-law usually comes to eat with us. These were pretty large chicken breasts, so I just cut them up once we went to go eat them. Some olive oil, thyme, and rosemary, as well as some sage. You'll see that in a second. And it called for red wine vinegar, but I thought that I had that, and no, I had balsamic vinaigrette. You're gonna need some sweet potatoes as well as some Brussels sprouts. Now you're going to want to put some foil on your pan because it will stick if you do not do that. I went ahead and peeled my sweet potatoes. If you like to keep the skin on, you can, but they tend to cook a little slower that way, and I needed this to be pretty quick. So I went ahead and peeled and diced them up into about the same size chunks. I threw them all over the pan, and next time I will spray the aluminum foil. I didn't think of that, but I think that would help. Some of the sweet potatoes did get a little stuck, but they came off. And then I went ahead and I cut up the Brussels sprouts. The smaller ones I only cut in half, and the larger ones I cut into 4 small pieces. And I'm going ahead and just putting them all over the pan, just in any sort of blank spaces. I love Brussels sprouts, and I just discovered that like within the last 2 years. So I love to incorporate them into my meals. You could always omit these or add a different vegetable that you like, but I'm telling you guys, the flavor between the Brussels sprouts and then the sweet potatoes, it is perfect. So I cut the 2 apples and I kept the skins on and sliced them. And then I drizzled everything with some olive oil, and I sprinkled some thyme and rosemary as well as some sage all over the vegetables just to help add some more flavor. Okay, so the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1.5 tablespoon red wine vinegar, and then 2 to 3 cloves of garlic. I did 2 because they were pretty big cloves. You could do 3 if you wanted, and you're gonna put that in the bag. So we're gonna go ahead and do that real quick. So this is kind of hard to do, oh geez, to do in the bag. This say? Oh my gosh, I have a horrible memory. 1.5 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. What?
That's something for you.
And then it said a tablespoon of each of the sage, which I honestly don't think I have enough sage, but guys, I don't think it really matters. We're just gonna go with it. Can I take this top off? Oh, that's a big piece. I did not have red wine vinegar, but I had balsamic vinegar, and I love balsamic vinegar, so I just used that. This is total trial and error. I never follow a recipe like to a T, but that's all right. Okay. All right, now that I have seasoned my chicken, I'm going to go ahead and place that on top of all of the vegetables and the apples. And you guys, this is the most delicious fall meal, I am telling you. So I went ahead and I put it in the oven, and I did end up taking the chicken off of the vegetables because they were finished and the chicken was still a little undercooked for our liking. So I put them in a cast iron skillet, and you'll see that in a minute. But I put everything in the oven. And I preheated the oven at 450 degrees for 35 minutes. So like I said, I put the chicken in a cast iron skillet with a little bit of oil, and I put the oven on broil, and I broiled the chicken for about 5 minutes, and this just kind of helped to get it a little bit crispier on the outside and cooked all the way through. And I'm telling you guys, this is my all-time favorite fall meal. This is what it looked like when it was all finished. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.